Thank you, Speaker. There are two main things that I have seen emerge in the last 12 months of this Parliament and government. Two very distinct themes. One is an ignorance to what makes for a sustainable city, and two is the exponential growth of broken promises. I rise tonight to talk about something that brings two together in my electorate of Ryde, and that is buses. This government has made no secret of its desire to build more housing, a noble pursuit, but not a panacea. Without sustaining infrastructure, these ambitions are destined for failure. You cannot sustain a city, let alone the confidence of the people in that city, if you build without any regard for their future. Goodhart's law says when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. When pursuit of numbers of houses is the only measure of success, it's time to reframe the measure. As this government seeks to impose more growth on communities like Ryde, it is failing to plan, let alone deliver, the requisite hard and social infrastructure required to make it sustainable. In Ryde, we are on track to exceeding our housing target by over 300%. Yet we are not on track for 300% more infrastructure. In fact, the opposite is true. In just the last 12 months, Ryde has been betrayed by a government that is making the deliberate choice to deprive our community of what it needs. Before the election, they promised to save T.G. Milner, but they have actively intervened to stop the land being made public. Before the election, they promised to match the previous Liberal government's rebuild of Ryde Hospital, but now they've scrapped the birthing unit. Before the election, they promised to deliver a cultural centre for our Korean community, but they never delivered any funding. Before the election, they promised to make schools a priority, but now they have cut $150 million from public schools. Before the election, they were ferocious in their campaign against development in Ryde, but after the election, they tried to flog off the North Ryde Common and Macquarie Hospital site for, you guessed it, development. There is a theme here. It's broken promises and an exacerbation of pressure that comes from a growing city. The pressure was already there, but they are making it worse, and bus service cuts are just the latest in the litany of government-driven betrayals in Ryde. Before the election, Labor was emphatic. Elect us and we will fix the buses in Sydney. In Ryde, they went even further. Elect us, they said, and we will restore the M52, a route that once ran through Ryde, connecting Parramatta and the CBD along Victoria Road. I was recently informed that Transport for New South Wales had not even consulted local bus operator Busways on their election commitment to restore that particular route. The government banked it at the election, yet the organisation responsible for its delivery literally didn't know. This ordeal has filled many in Ryde with dread. If a government won't talk to its operators, how can we expect it to talk to its citizens? However, while I hold out hope for a correction of this particular error, I have been floored by the announced betrayal of local students and commuters with the most recent bus timetable changes. For an area doing so much heavy lifting on housing supply, it beggars belief that we would be the worst impacted area as a result of the changes. 2 full routes have been scrapped around our busiest commercial and education precinct, Macquarie University and Macquarie Centre. The 259 and 294 are both set for the chopping block. These services are the mainstay for students all across Ryde and many who work or live around Macquarie Centre. The government's logic is that people will simply catch the metro. However, anyone living on Fontenoy Road, where this bus traverses, knows the walk to the nearest metro is at least 20 minutes. This simply isn't an adequate alternative, especially in an environment where the government wants even more people. The decision must be changed, and I call on the Minister to protect our services from this punitive timetable carve-up. Additionally, the changes cut the destination of the N91, meaning late-night travellers, especially young people residing on campus, cannot make their way to and from Bondi. This is counterintuitive to helping young people get around Sydney cheaply, safely, and in an environmentally friendly manner. And finally, I note the government has flagged modifications of the 500X, with a requirement that this route be exclusively serviced by articulated or bendy buses. Nobody seems to know whether this will improve the situation in Ryde, but the community can be forgiven for their concerns. There are fewer bendy buses available for service, and given their extended size, it can be much harder to find suitable drivers. Beyond the examples I've given, I've been inundated by people let down by unreliable bus services. They weren't perfect in the last term of Parliament, but they are worse now than ever before. I call on the government to honour their commitment. The people of Ryde are not unrealistic in their expectations, but they are principled, and they believe that if you make a promise, you should stick to it. Please fix the buses.